Hi, this is Siofra's Magic Alcove, and I'm Siofra Bradigan. So today we're going to talk about manifesting. I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth. I never do. Was thinking about the subject in and of itself and how I have managed over the years to actually make things happen that I need to have happen, and if there was any kind of a pattern to it. One of the things um, that I've succeeded in doing is keeping our house. We were at a point where we were going to lose the house. And it was not a fun place to be, as one can imagine. I thought we were going to become homeless. It was a possibility. It was like at a time when things were way up in the air. There was a lot of challenges going on. Ian was experiencing his anxieties and panic attacks sort of full blown before we really had an idea of what was going on or any way to treat it. So it was like extreme chaos. And he had to leave a job because he had his first panic attack, and our income plummeted because he wasn't able to work. I'm trying to figure that out. So, one of the things that I remember during that time, besides the anxiety producing environment that it was, which it was definitely, was um, I decided that it'd be a good time for him to go to college. It seemed like a good way to help us to focus on other things, to help get his mind off of it and my, broaden our horizons. Um, Possibilities might arise, you never know. And it was actually because of that choice of thinking that education would be a good opportunity for him to do something, since he wasn't able to do the other stuff, something that would give him a purpose. I'm not exactly sure exactly how I thought of it, but it seemed like a good idea. And he got an email about housing from the college. And one of the things in the email was, to help students find low cost housing. And it also mentioned keeping people in houses they already owned so that they didn't become homeless. And I was like, wow. And it was a local program. And I had, I think, 2 weeks from the time I saw the email to the time that all the application process had to be in, all the paperwork had to be in. So the fact that I paid attention to it, I think part of manifesting is being aware and alert of the opportunities that might come by and how society and the way things are organized might be able to assist you being able to weave around through all the difficulties that all of us have faced at one time or another, because it's not like life is set up for ease of use. There's always some kind of a challenge. And I contacted the number on there, and I got a list of all the documentation that I needed, and I got it all together and filled out the form, and I got it in. And the guy was impressed, which was kind of nice. He said I had the most complete application he'd ever seen. So when I put my mind to it, I'm very capable of, even though it's something I don't like to do. It's not my favorite thing to do in the world, is paperwork. I hate paperwork, but I can do it, and I do often have to do it. And because of that application, the state of Oregon actually paid our mortgage for a year. And there was a little bit of a confusion on my part because it was approved, it said it was going to start at a certain time. They told us not to bother paying our mortgage. We became more and more behind as we were waiting for things to kick in. So by the time the state actually picked up the mortgage payment, then we were in arrears by a significant amount. I was like, okay, now what are we going to do? Trying to figure out how to deal with that. And at the end of the first program, I became aware of another program in the same facility was doing both programs, where the state would pay your arrears up to a certain amount of money, which was basically our arrears. So they caught us up. which gave us an opportunity to sort of get back on track and get things together. And, with our house, there's been a lot of things like that. I managed to get us 2 new roofs. Um, the first one was through a more local program, not through the federal government, again through Oregon. And they put a new roof on our main house. And we were having some serious problems with our roof. Things were leaking. I mean, we had water damage. It was not a happy place. Something had to be done. I guess the first time, actually, we put our own roof on. This was the second time we had to have a roof replaced. And someone else needed to do it because we didn't have the money to buy all the materials and so forth and do it ourselves, which we probably would have done had we had enough funds for that at the time. But yes, got the roof paid for and don't owe any money to the state for that, which is incredible. And then we still had the roof over here, over our temple and this part of the building, the outbuilding here. And everybody was absolutely convinced that there was no way we would be able to get a grant for that because it's not part of the main house. It's not the main house. And I guess most of these programs are not for outbuildings, but for the main homes. And there were several things we needed to get done. It needed to get a tree removed, needed to get this roof replaced. And so I went through the U.S. Department of Agriculture that has a program, one of them working in Oregon, and got a hold of the right person, filled out another massive amount of paperwork. That one was even worse than the first one. Oh my. There was so many things I had to try and find out and fill out and forms and whatnot and details and accounting, et cetera, in order to do it. And I wasn't trying to get a grant. I was trying to get a loan, a low cost loan to fix the roof. And I figured it would cost us, a certain amount of money. So whoever the woman was who did it, who worked for the government and looked at the paperwork, because of how I worded things, I pointed out the fact that this building is connected to that building through they have a combined roof profile, and if this roof collapsed, it would take that one down. It's like, and this one was really leaking. It was just, and we had tried repairing it ourselves. It was insane. They gave us a $10,000 grant. We didn't use it all. We got the roof fixed. We got the tree taken down. She approved all of it, which was just completely astonishing to me. So that's one of the ways that, one of the evidence of me manifesting things that if I wasn't looking for, paying attention to, trying to find, work out, open myself up to possibilities, ways of doing things that were not the usual that I would think of, I never would have found, I never would have seen. And I think that sometimes being able to manifest things in your life comes down to paying attention to what the universe is offering and noticing that the offer is there, regardless of how it comes through. It doesn't have to, like, a person just appears on your doorstep and hands you a pile of money, kind of thing. I think that's a fairly rare opportunity when that happens, but it's not ever happened to us. Hey, anybody wants to do that, I'm up for it, but hey, that's not what we're looking for necessarily. But, trying to figure things out. And one of the things I've learned over my life I've gone through lots of different kinds of experiences where I've been hungry and not had any food to eat for days at a time. This is before Ian and I ever got together. It's like life always has challenges, and I think some people think incorrectly that becoming a witch, a magic user, whatever, and studying the arts and so forth means that if you're succeeding, then it's clear sailing and you never have any problems. That's sort of like the evidence of the work that you're doing, that, everything goes your way. But that's not the reality of how the universe works, because one, you're not the only person who lives in the universe. So you got all these other people and what they want and what they need and what they're looking for, and everything else in their wills and so forth that get in the way of what you're trying to do. But magic gives you sort of an extra set of tools. I mean, I don't really remember, I wasn't really doing a lot of ritual or specific rituals to try and help us with that. I was talking to my deities for sure, and talking to the universe and saying, hey guys, I don't deserve this. You guys don't want to make me homeless, please don't do that to me, that kind of thing, which was just kind of the typical railing at the universe and the situation you find yourself in, which doesn't help. Sometimes it can be a bit of an emotional release, but it's not that helpful. And looking for and paying attention to that kind of stuff, not expecting it just to happen. I had to do all the paperwork. The fact that I had the right people looking at it and got it in at the right time and got it approved was all me. And ironically, I had to ask Ian to stop telling me that there was no way we were going to find any way to fix our roof when it came to the roof, that we were doomed. And, I said, I am working on this. So please stop talking like that, because you're going to mess with my ability to manifest this stuff. So stop dumping negative stuff on it. And that's another issue. When you're really trying to work on something, depending on who you tell and how they feel about it and what they say about it, it can either help or interfere with what you're trying to accomplish, which may be one of the reasons for secrecy. But we're in a marriage; it's not going to happen. This is just his concern and worries coming out, and I'm just like, stop. You need to stop, because I need to be able to focus on this, and I don't need the negative energetic feedback that you're generating by saying I can't do it and that no one could. I did it. I have the evidence. So that's one kind of manifesting that I have done. Then there are other situations, like when someone's health is at risk. I have this inner knowing when it's a serious problem. Hopefully I'll always know that. Not that, I'm perfect or anything. But the times when it has become clear to me that there's something wrong and something needs to be taken care of, I'm sort of a force of nature that's kind of hard to ignore. And my daughter has gotten that from me. There's no doubt about it. With her, for example, we sort of did this one together. My granddaughter had, what is it called? Encephalitis? No, meningitis. That's what she had. She had all the symptoms of meningitis. She had a high fever. She had a massive headache. It hurt to move her head at all. My daughter took her to the doctor. The doctor sent her to the hospital sent her home. The next day, she went back to the doctor sent her to the hospital, and the hospital wanted to send her back home again. And, said she had a virus or the flu or something like that. And I was talking to my daughter on the phone, and I'm asking her again the questions about, this is this, and this. It's like, we know what this is. This is spinal meningitis. That's what this is. I said, so do not leave the hospital until they agree to do a spinal tap, because that's the only way to know for sure. And that helped her to really push that, and she was very insistent. So my approval of that tactic added to my daughter's concern and her, I wiped out any lack of confidence, I guess, that she might have had in the situation because I said that. And so she did. She insisted that they do a spinal tap. And when they came back, when they first took it, they said, oh, this looks clear. It'll be fine. They came back and everything had changed. All of a sudden, it's like she's in isolation. They're pumping her full of drugs. And the the nurse says, it's really good that we caught this when we did. I thought someone needed to punch her in the face for saying such a stupid thing under the circumstances, considering the fact that they weren't going to look for it unless we had insisted. So sometimes manifestation is that complete will to make something happen because you know it has to happen. And the power of your own personality and so forth can overpower even an institution like the hospital. Um, at least it works for us. Then, like with Ian and his hernia, it took us a long time of trying to figure out how to maneuver through the healthcare system to get his hernia repaired. And I suddenly realized that they kept denying it because they didn't think it was as bad as it actually was. And so I thought, okay, so this is a cost analysis situation. And if I make this cost them too much money, they're going to approve the surgery. So whenever he had bad symptoms, which was too often, in my opinion, I took him to the emergency room. I think it took about 3 times, and then all of a sudden we got approval for the surgery, which I thought was interesting. But then we had this weird situation. Say the they approved it, but the person that we saw, we had seen him twice. The first time we saw him, he was like, "Yeah, we'll put this through, but we don't think they're going to approve it." And of course they didn't. You get a doctor who doesn't think anything's going to be approved. The second time we saw him, he was like of the same mind, but he says, "I'm not going to lie and say this is worse than it is to try and get approval because I'm not that person." And I'm like, okay. And then we get the approval, and we had just gotten this really negative, energetic vibe from this guy. And I had a dream. And in my dream, I knew the dream was telling me that if Ian went under the knife by this guy, he might not come out, or he would come out in worse shape than he went in. And it was so strong of a feeling. It was like, we can't do this. So we now finally have the approval, and they're just going to like run through. They're going to do it as soon as possible. And I called them up. I say, no, we need a different doctor. We don't feel comfortable with this doctor. And they're like, you can't change doctors. This isn't done. This is not, they won't let you once you have a doctor. Don't you understand? We finally got this approved. Don't you want to have the surgery? And I'm like, not with this surgeon. We don't feel comfortable with him. And, she says, well, they're just not going to let you do it. So I called the clinic where they do it. They have all those surgeons. And I asked them, I said, is it true that you won't let me change doctors? They said, oh, no, you can have anyone you want. I'm like, all right. So don't take their word for it. That's the other thing. It's like, just because someone in your reality puts up a stop sign and says, we don't think that's going to work, doesn't mean you have to accept it. Ask some forward thinking questions, or continue to look in that direction, and keep on until you get an actual answer, because a lot of times people just say the first thing that comes to their head. They don't understand what's your problem, kind of thing. So we did go with a different surgeon, and then later it turned out that the surgeon we didn't want to have seriously injured somebody and pretty much killed them. They did a really botched job. It was bad. So the instincts were correct. So just because you're getting what you think you want, sometimes the universe tries to warn you and say, okay, yeah, we know you need this and you want this, but let's back up a little bit here and get the right thing so that you end up coming out of this okay. And like when Ian had appendicitis, it was an interesting thing with him, especially if I decide that he needs to go to the ER, and I just say it a certain tone of voice, and I say, get in the car, I'm taking you to the hospital, he will do it. He will not argue with me. And with his appendicitis, the universe was very interesting during that, because he probably had it happening for a while. He'd been feeling like really icky for a couple of weeks, and with some pains in his belly, but they weren't as centered. And you can have appendicitis that goes over a long period of time. It's not always just acute. And so he was working for the lottery at the time, and he was working out of town. He had to go out of town. And for some strange reason, his van, uh, whenever he tried to leave town, would turn off. It just stopped. It wouldn't go. He had trouble with this van, and it wouldn't go. And then he would decide, okay, fine, I'll see if I can like go home or get another van or something, and then it would start. And then he would think, oh, okay, I guess it's fine. And then it would start to go, and then it would stop. I mean, it was pretty serious. The universe was very clear: do not leave town. And I was working at my office, and I had gone home for lunch. I was only going to be there for another 20 minutes when he walked in the door. So he walks in the door, and I look at him and I say, what's wrong? Because I can tell something's wrong. He sits down, he starts to tell me what's happening, and I say, okay, you need to call the lottery and tell them I'm taking you to the hospital because I'm pretty sure you have appendicitis and I don't know how long you're going to be out. He says, you do? I do? And he calls them. My wife says I have to go to the hospital because she thinks I have appendicitis. And so I took him, and you know how medical people are. A lot of times, if you know medical terminology, they don't like you at all. So I really tried hard not to give them my diagnosis because I knew that would mean it would take a lot longer. And it's like he has severe right lower quadrant abdominal pain. It's like, hello. And they didn't listen, of course, even to that. They tested him for kidney stones first, even though the pain he had was not in the typical place for kidney stone pain. And then they finally did a blood test, and his white blood cell count was through the roof. He started getting a massive fever. And then they called in the surgeon. The surgeon came in, pushed it down, pulled it up. He screamed, yes, you have appendicitis. And so he was in surgery like probably within an hour or two after the surgeon finally showed up. And there was lots of other stupid stuff with the hospital that just drove me crazy, but we got it done. Uh, yeah. And I've had, just numerous times when I have a clear vision in my mind of what needs to happen, what's wrong, and what needs to happen in order to fix it. And it's just like I'm going to plow through, and nothing can distract me from my goal. And I think that's part of manifesting. It's like there's that. And of course, there are the other times when I've done something so outrageous and used magic to do it, like when I was up in San Francisco with my mother and a housemate, and we had the gang uh, of heavy metal punkers or whatever that were going to like assault us. And I pulled out my magic profile and started casting a circle out loud and calling on the gods and goddesses for protection and so forth, and they freaked out and ran away. We, made them run away. And again, that was a force of will because it's like I can see the energy here. I can see that my mother and my housemate are terrified. They're feeding. I can see the energy flowing between them and this gang of people, and how their fear is feeding their aggression, and they're getting emboldened more and more and more as the feeding continues. And of course, their aggression feeds into the fear, and it's sort of this system that's going back and forth. And the only thing I can think of to do is to completely just snap the system. It's like distract my mother and my housemate and the gang. I distracted all of them and threw their wills completely into disarray so they didn't know which way was up. And, speaking out loud, I find very powerful, and stating my purpose and talking to the elements and calling in the god and the goddess for protection and so forth. And like I ignored them, I turned my back on them. They did not matter to me. They were like insects. It's just completely and totally irrelevant to my situation. And I knew it. And I was not afraid. And when I was done, I turned around and they were gone. They had literally run down the road. And my mother and my housemate were looking at me, and my mother says, "How did you know to do that?" I said, "Well, someone had to do something in order to change the energy, or we were going to get mugged." And they're going like, "Yeah, we know." So manifesting can happen like in an instant or with determination and focus. It just depends upon the circumstance. And I think that that is all a part of it. It's like the idea that a lot of the books have about manifesting, where you can have anything you want. And in a sense, it's true. The universe is willing to give you anything you want, according to Moida, with the proviso of as long as you will let it. And most of the time, we get in our own way. We stop ourselves from being able to get what it is that we want or what we need because we're too focused on what we think we should have or what we want. And the other thing to remember whenever all of us are going to be dealing with situations like this. It's just the way life is. It doesn't stop challenges from coming up. It doesn't make everyone else suddenly nice to you or anything like that because everyone's going through their own thing. But to remember that you always have choices, and that's one of the keys to, I think, a lot of this stuff. If you think there's no choice, you're thinking wrong. There are always choices. There are choices you haven't thought of, opportunities you haven't figured out, resources that you haven't found, solutions that you haven't, that you haven't put any energy into or conceived of, and you just have to keep on opening yourself up and looking for those solutions, changing your tactics, the way you're dealing with things, and so forth. And um, we're certainly not wealthy individuals. We don't manifest a lot of money. We manifest a lot of goodwill from the universe. And I think that that's part of it as well. It's like my daughter and I both are very much on the same page with that. She has had some amazing things that have manifested for her because she's very giving and she helps other people. She goes out of her way sometimes, I think, too much, but it's like it's her choice. But that's who she is. And when she really needs help, someone shows up. They just sort of show up out of nowhere. She broke down on a weird road she'd never been on before, and this guy stopped to see what was happening, and he was a person who knew how to fix the problem, and he fixed it for her, and then he came and fixed more stuff later. I mean, just like he showed up. And like with me, when I got my staff, when I first got my staff when I was in Texas, and I had left Winus Place with my staff, and we'd gone shopping, and I stopped to call somebody, and we still had like phone booths. This wasn't a booth, but an outside phone outside of the grocery store we were going into, and I automatically put my staff and leaned it against the phone booth when I made the call, and it was so new to me, I forgot it, and I left it behind. And I was just devastated, like, oh my goodness, now what? The universe gave me this wonderful thing, and now I've like left it behind. How stupid am I? And I'm like, okay, if it's really meant for me, it'll still be there. And I get back after we do some other stuff. We don't go right back, and then we go back, and I walk up to the phone thing, and it's not there. And I'm just like, oh my God, I've lost it. And then this man comes over and he looks at me, he says, "Did you leave something important here?" And I said, "Yes." Yes, I did. I left this staff that I just got. And he says, "I thought so. I thought that it was very important. And when I saw it, I knew you would be back for it. And so I kept it for you." And he whips it out and he says, "Here it is." And I was just absolutely beside myself with like, anytime in another life, even if you need help, you just come and ask for it. I will give you help. It's just like, you don't know how important this is and what you have done for me. The universe is an amazing place. And so, that kind of stuff happens to me fairly often. And And that's part of manifesting too. It's like you in the universe paying attention, and the universe paying attention to you, getting into the stream of things. Like you're going along with the current and taking care of stuff sometimes without any compensation or even thought of compensation for other people, just because it's the right thing to do, means that later good things will come to you unexpectedly. I mean, when Ian and I first got engaged and we were going to be getting married, the hand fasting ceremony that we chose had a jewel in it that I had to have. And I don't know what kind of a jewel. I'm just sort of waiting for inspiration to see what the universe might have for me. And I spontaneously want to go to Mount Shasta on spring equinox, and there's still a fair amount of snow there. And we go up there, and there's these people that are already using the spot. They got some crystals out and so forth, and they're doing their own like welcome spring kind of thing. So we hang back and wait, and they go down the mountain and we go over there and just do our thing and say, "Yay, it's spring! We're going to be getting married soon." and and then they came back, and I saw their vehicle come up, and I'm like, "That looks like the people that left here, doesn't it?" Like, oh, maybe. And this woman comes out of the car, and she runs over to us, and she hands me this rose quartz heart, and she says, "The love between the two of you is just so wonderful. We had to come back and give you this." And that became the jewel that I used for the wedding ceremony. And I'm like, "Wow, that's perfect. This is my jewel." And Ian says, "Things like that don't happen to me." And I'm like, "Yeah, well, you're with me now, so things like this happen to me all the time. So there you go." And I never know when something like that is going to happen. It's just sort of in the course of existing and, doing what needs to be done and being where I need to be and noticing when things happen and other people noticing. It's just like becoming agents. And like when I got all the roses, when I was looking for a job, I needed to have that job so I could go to massage school. And that random person on the bus gave me the first rose. And I was just like out of the blue, the universe gifted me this rose. And I thought, oh, I'm going to get this job. This job is mine. And then on my way to the second interview, a different guy comes up. I'm in a different location. I'm not on the bus. I'm at a desk at the local community college doing some work, getting ready to leave. And a different guy comes up and gives me a rose. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. This is two roses. So the third interview, I had to have a rose of my own because it became a thing. And, it's like signs and portents, as it were, from the universe. It's like the universe was giving me confidence, was telling me that this was indeed the job that was meant for me so I could go to massage school. It approved, apparently, of me changing my career completely. I mean, it was like a light bulb went off one day, and I'm like, I've been a psychic healer for 15 years. I could be a massage therapist and get paid for doing what I'm doing already. Duh. This is what I should have been doing all along. Who knew there were schools? So, yeah. And, manifested my way into that. And I think that the key really is that being in the moment, being with a positive relationship with the universe, knowing yourself and paying attention to your own intuition when it comes around. And like I said, not taking no for an answer the first time, or maybe the second time, or the third time, or the fourth time, depending on what it is. I mean, sometimes it's a no because there's something better somewhere else. And, that's another thing, that a door opens, a door closes in front of you for this is because there's something better just around the corner that's going to suit you more and be more perfect than what you're getting now. So, and of course, the other thing is your unintended consequences of bad choices that you've made in your life, or poor choices, not necessarily bad choices, but the collected uh, energy of all those potential consequences finally come home to roost at some point. And getting those cleared out definitely allows you more opportunity to actually manifest what you're looking for and to be who you are and do what you want, what makes you happy. Doesn't mean that sometimes you don't have to do stuff that you don't like in order to survive, because we have to eat. It's like having shelter and having food seems to be a rather important process of the whole being alive kind of a thing if we want to stay here. And we have to, like, figure out the system that we're in, whatever, wherever we're from, whatever the system happens to be, how to maneuver our way through it. But there are pathways. There are ways to work your way around and through whatever it is that's happening. So, yeah, there's no simple, straightforward answer. It's not like step one, step two, step three, do this ritual, do this focused concentration, do this meditation and practice and so forth. It's about the overall living of your life, I think, and that all important willpower. Like, when the force of a human will is all gathered together into a single point, going in one single direction, there's not much that can withstand it. And like I said, those are some examples of things that have happened in my life where I have been able to muster that, as well as the universe is paying attention to who you are. The universe knows your heart and knows your needs. And it's like, if we think that the universe isn't giving us stuff because we're bad or because we're being punished or something like that, we're getting the wrong message. Um, we're we're going down a negative pathway in our head. We're creating a I don't know, a record loop, um, like a groove in a record, and we get stuck in these ways of thinking, and that stops you from getting anywhere because you're going around the same pathway over and over again, getting the same result, not getting anywhere. Like, it's not a good pathway. And changing how you think about your life and what you're doing and how you're doing it can be a challenge. There's no doubt about it. One of the reasons why I like ritual and magic and getting outside of myself and feeling more a part of the whole universe and not just an individual instance of whatever. I'm not sure what to call it. But anyway. So, those are my random thoughts on manifesting. And hopefully, some of this will be useful information for some of you, and will help you see your way through some morass of stupidity that you're stuck in, uh, of your own making or someone else's, doesn't matter. But opening yourself up to new solutions and possibilities, making connections and so forth, could make all the difference. So I hope you're all having a good time wherever you are. And this is Siofra's Magic Alcove, and I'm Siofra Bradigan. Blessed be.